So now I'm going to turn it over to Kiran, and she will take you through some of the key initiatives that were in motion at ICANN over 2015. So take it away, Kiran.
Thanks, Allison, and welcome everybody to the webinar. Thanks for joining us. In 2015, we saw some pretty significant progress on a number of really important initiatives at ICANN. The four sort of main ones that were of great concern to brand owners I'll review here, although of course there's much more than just these four things going on at ICANN. The four that I think are most valuable for us to review today are the IANA Stewardship Transition and Accountability Initiative, the upcoming reviews of the new GTLD program and the subsequent rounds discussion, including the rights protection mechanisms review and the review of consumer trust and competition and safety. And then the third is the next generation WHOIS policy development process, which is now being called the Next Generation Registration Directory Services, or RDS. And then the final was a discussion that was sparked towards the end of the year between brand owners and intellectual property advocates and contracted parties such as registrars and registries about how to best handle abuse complaints, especially in light of some of the language of the new registrar accreditation agreement from 2013. So the IANA transition and ICANN accountability is actually in a really interesting place now. The ICG, which is the Stewardship Transition Coordination Group, announced the completion of its work at the end of October, just sort of pending and waiting for the final recommendations from the cross-community working group on accountability, which is very much in a critical stage right now. And we have some really fantastic advocates in our community who are working on this initiative. Some of whom are actually on the call, so hi guys. So the ICANN Accountability Initiative, currently the GNSO Council is reviewing public comments on the proposal that was put forth by the CCWG. A couple of the hot topics, although certainly not all of them, are the inclusion of human rights languages and to what extent ICANN needs to explicitly state its commitment to international norms of human rights in the accountability documents. Including, the integration of the standards under the UN Declaration of Human Rights and things like that. Another thing is what are ICANN's remit and responsibilities going to be, and how will the community deal with policy development? Will that stay in the hands of the generic name supporting organization or the GNSO? How will governments interact with policy development, et cetera? So big topics on the table, working through it with vigor. People are spending a lot of time on that, and we expect to see some major progress in 2016 on this in time for the scheduled transition, which I believe is in September. So, of course, the main question there is how do we keep ICANN as an organization accountable to the multi-stakeholder community without the oversight of the U.S. government? So, the next hot topic, which I know everybody in the domain world is eagerly awaiting, is the new GTLD subsequent round. So as if we don't have enough to deal with from the first round of applications, we are now beginning discussion about opening up either a next round or sort of continuing cycle of applications moving forward. The final issue report was published and the draft charter was approved by the Generic Name Supporting Organization Council. The key brand issues that are contained within are, top-level RPMs, legal rights objections, string similarity issues. So I think some of us will recall car and cars, hotel, hotels, and how people are going to deal with the challenges that those types of things present for brand owners. Second-level RPMs, obviously a huge topic. The Trademark Clearinghouse review, sunrise processes and procedures, and then sort of along that same line, we'll be looking at hopefully premium pricing and reserved and named issues as well. ICANN has stated that they want to stay out of any sort of regulation of pricing. However, the brand community sort of feels that the pricing and reserved names issues sort of effectively defeated or at least challenged the brand community in a way that that was contrary to the purpose of the rights protection mechanisms that were put in place. So that will be on the table for discussion, and hopefully we'll get some good results and better results moving forward to avoid some of the challenges that we've seen with launches that Allison spoke about earlier. We're going to be talking about .brands, how .brands have been used so far in this round, to the extent that they have been used, and what sort of issues they would like to see resolved with the contracting process and other issues moving forward in subsequent rounds. Contract enforceability is huge. Does the application and your promises to the community represent a contract at that stage? How will we integrate public interest commitments in the next round? That was a challenge for us. And then, of course, the consumer trust, choice, and competition, which I mentioned earlier is under review, will be a huge thing for brands as well, because ultimately brand protection in the domain name space has to do with protecting the consumer and our customers, and but also making sure that we respect the principles of choice and competition as well. With all of these things on the table and the way that the reviews are going, we don't anticipate seeing any round of subsequent rounds earlier than 2018. There is some discussion about bifurcating the rounds to have brands go first and then generics come later, because some of the review issues are not as relevant to a single registrant model, like .brands, and the contract will be significantly different. It already is significantly different, but there was a lot of work done on that front. So a brand round might be a little bit earlier, but I still don't see that happening before early 2018. So this is a timeline that was put forth by ICANN some time ago, and as you can see, it's already extremely outdated, because if we went by this timeline, we'd be done with the rights protection mechanisms review, and in fact, we actually haven't started it yet. So, but ICANN still has this timeline on its reviews page as current, and I think it's valuable for us to look at just to sort of see the interconnectability and the interdependability of each review. So forget the years on top, but just kind of look and see the work that we have to do before we get to a second round, and how it's going to be all sort of concurrent, and how it's going to be a very, very busy year for us at ICANN. So another hot topic for everybody is WHOIS. What's going to happen with WHOIS? The Privacy Proxy Services final report was published and approved by the GNSO Council, represented over 2 years of hard work from the community, and concentrated on putting standards in place for the relay of communication to registrants behind privacy shields, and then the principles upon which details can be revealed or disclosed to requesting parties, and of course the indemnification that the requesting parties have to give the services and the protections that need to be put in place for very important principles of safety and privacy. So the next stage of Privacy Proxy Services accreditation is the implementation working group will convene. We suspect it will be a lot of the same people that worked on the policy development, and that will probably take at least a year, and then we'll start actually seeing a rollout of the principles and the processes for brand owners to be able to more effectively address the challenge that's presented by privacy and proxy services in a way that serves consumers and still respects privacy rights. The other big thing on WHOIS is that they're going to totally scrap it, and they're going to knock down to the ground and build it right back up. They're calling that the Next Generation Registration Directory Services. The PDP has launched. It launched this week. We had our first call on Tuesday as a group. We are electing leaders. So the brand owner participation is welcome and encouraged. For more information, there's an announcement on the ICANN homepage, and it's very, very easy to join, either as an observer or as a participant. I think we have some new brand owner participants, and we're very excited for that. This will be a huge issue for everybody. And while it's going to be a big process, watch this space, watch our blog, and kind of wait and see where it's going to be really important for brand owners to become involved if you can't do the whole process. And we'll help you understand where issues become critical and where you might want to chime in with comments and get your voice on the record to make sure that who is remains a thing. There are some who want to eliminate it completely. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. And also, to make sure that it's a robust and accessible model. So not to scare anybody, but this is what the next generation WHOIS policy development process is going to look like. And so when I say it's complicated and when I say it's going to be a big, long process and procedure, I was not lying to you. So all of these elements are going to be related, and of course this slide will be available afterwards if you want to look at it closely, but to be honest with you, I'm just sort of showing this to you so that you know how hard we're working on this. And these issues are all going to be interdependent. There are going to be multiple phases. We're going to sort of go back and forth on these issues, and that's why it's so important for brand owners to maintain a robust voice through all of these processes, because a lot of these issues are very important to brand owners, and we need to make sure that our voice is heard throughout. But don't worry, we have your back on this issue, and we'll be helping you through the process. The other big issue on the table in 2015 was how far ICANN really needs to go to help brand owners and IP owners to interact with registrars and registries about content of websites or use of websites that are considered abusive. So ICANN put forward this graphic, which again will be available, these slides will be available to you afterwards, so we don't need to go into it in detail. They put out this graphic to help us understand what they consider their remit and responsibilities and what they consider voluntary action, what they consider contractual compliance. And this really brought the parties to the table to start discussing sort of best practices, or at least sort of suggested practices to make it simpler and easier for brand owners facing volumes of abuse online to help address these issues. And so we've been involved in that discussion. It will be an interesting one continuing in 2016. We haven't really gotten anywhere yet, but we do anticipate that the registrars will be willing and able to discuss with us in this year as well. So I think it would be huge if we could come to the table as a community on that. So a little background on that, the Registrar Accreditation Agreement does have language that suggests there is a duty to respond appropriately to reports of abuse. Of course, the question remains what respond appropriately means, and that's sort of what we're trying to get clarification on. And of course, there's a WHOIS accuracy specification as well, which is very helpful for brand owners. So like I said, standard best practices are in development voluntarily from registrars and registries, and so we are going to be working on that in 2016. I think that'll be a big issue.